The day of Daniel Carter's funeral was the quietest day of my life. The kind of silence that hums in your bones, too still, too heavy. It was a gray morning in Willow Bend, the sky bruised with clouds as if the heavens themselves mourned. I stood beside my husband's casket, the damp soil sinking under my heels, the scent of lilies clinging to the air. My fingers clutched the edge of my black coat, trying to stop the trembling that had lived in me since the hospital call. 42 years of love gone in an instant. As the pastor spoke, his words blurred into meaningless sound. My eyes stayed fixed on Daniel's coffin. Simple oak, the kind he would have built himself. He hated extravagance. He believed dignity lived in simplicity. When it was over, I threw a handful of dirt into the grave. The soft thud broke something inside me. That's when my phone buzzed in my purse. A single message lit the screen. I'm alive. That's not me in the casket. My vision blurred. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined it. My heart slammed against my ribs. My fingers, stiff with fear, typed back a trembling reply. Who is this? The response came almost instantly. I can't say. They're watching. Don't trust our sons. My blood ran cold. My sons. Adam and Ryan. I looked up at them, standing just a few feet away, somber, composed, arms folded across their chests. Their eyes met mine for a second. Adam gave me a faint, rehearsed smile. Ryan's jaw tightened. Something was wrong. Their grief looked practiced. Their hugs that morning had been stiff, their tears too delayed. I told myself it was shock, denial. But that message whispered a different truth, one that scraped against my sanity. Chapter 1, the beginning. Daniel Carter had been my reason for living. I met him when I was 24. Back when Willow Bend was just a sleepy town surrounded by endless fields. I cleaned houses to care for my sick mother, and Daniel fixed bicycles in a tiny shop he'd inherited from his father. We were poor, but we were happy. We didn't have much, just each other, and that was enough. I still remember the first time he spoke to me. It was a Tuesday. I was walking to the market in my faded green dress, and he stepped out of his shop with grease on his hands, smiling shyly. "Good morning, Evelyn," he said. "Need me to fix your bike?" I didn't even own one, but I found an excuse just to keep talking to him. That conversation turned into picnics under the willow trees, laughter echoing over the river, and eventually a small wedding in the backyard of my mother's house. We had nothing, not even matching rings, but I'd never felt richer. For years we lived in a 2-bedroom house with a tin roof that rattled when it rained. Daniel worked from sunrise to sunset. I sewed clothes for the women in town. We were partners in everything. When Adam was born, Daniel cried harder than I'd ever seen him cry. 2 years later, Ryan followed. Our house filled with laughter, chaos, and the kind of love that makes all the struggle worth it. We were a family. Or so I believed. Chapter 2. The Sonsas. The boys grew. So did their hunger for more. Adam, the eldest, was ambitious. Too ambitious. From a young age, he'd look around our modest home and ask why we didn't have a car like other families. why our clothes weren't stolen, why Dad worked with his hands instead of wearing a suit. Daniel would just smile and say, "Some people measure success in money. I measure it in peace." Adam didn't understand. Neither did Ryan. When Adam turned 18, Daniel offered him a job at the shop. Refusé. "I don't want to spend my life covered in oil," he said, his tone sharp enough to cut glass. "I'm going to be someone important." I saw the pain flicker across Daniel's face. He didn't argue. He just sat on the porch that night, looking at the stars, like they might hold an answer. Years passed. Adam made a name for himself in the city, real estate, investments, all the things Daniel never cared for. Ryan followed close behind. They wore expensive suits, drove cars that cost more than our house. At first, I was proud. Then the pride turned to distance, that their visits grew shorter, their phone calls briefer. When they did come, it was with forced smiles and gifts that felt like apologies wrapped in ribbons. "Mom," Adam once said, scanning the peeling wallpaper of our home, "you and Dad should move somewhere better. This place is falling apart." He was right, but it was our home. Every crack in the wall had a memory behind it. Daniel just smiled sadly. "Money changed our boys," he told me that night on the porch. "We're not enough for them anymore." I didn't want to believe him, but he knew. Deep down, I knew. Chapter 3. The pressure. It got worse when Adam married Claire, Albright City, with perfect nails and eyes that could cut through you. When she first visited, she barely stepped inside before wrinkling her nose. "Charming," she said, her voice dripping with politeness. "Very rustic." She picked at her dinner like it was poison. Daniel kept apologizing. I pretended not to notice. Soon after, both Adam and Ryan started talking about our future. How Daniel should sell the shop. How we should move into a retirement community. Oh, they could manage our finances. Each visit came with more papers to sign, more suggestions that felt like demands. One night, Daniel turned to me, his voice low. "Something's wrong, Eve. They're pushing too hard. This isn't about helping us." I told him he was over. I wanted to believe that. I really did. But I saw it in their eyes. Impatience, calculation. They weren't asking for our trust. They were taking it. Chapter 4. The accident the morning Daniel died was bright and ordinary. Cruelly so. He left early for the shop, kissing my forehead like always. I was making his favorite lunch when the phone rang. Dual quotes. "Mrs. Carter, this is Memorial Hospital. Your husband's been in a serious accident. Please come immediately." I couldn't breathe. When I arrived, both Adam and Ryan were already there. Though no one had called them, I didn't notice then how strange that was. "Mom," Adam said, his voice tight. "Dad's in bad shape. One of the machines exploded. The doctor said he had severe burns and head trauma." When I saw him in that hospital bed, hooked to machines, I barely recognized him. His hand, the same one that had built our home, was the only part left untouched. I held it, whispered his name. He squeezed back, faint but real. I swear he did. But my sons were already talking about insurance, about policies, about money. 3 days later, the doctors told me Daniel wouldn't recover. Adam said, "Mom, he wouldn't want to live like this. We should let him go." I wanted to scream. Instead, I prayed. And 2 days later, Daniel was gone. Who's like that? Chapter 5. The funeral was small. None of Daniela's co-workers came. No one from the shop. Adam said he wanted something private. Ryan nodded. Claire checked her phone during the pastor's speech. When the last prayer ended, the world fell silent. The coffin lowered into the ground. The sound of dirt against the lid made me want to collapse. And then came that message, "I'm alive! I'm alive." That's not me in the casket. Don't trust our sons. Chapter 6. The investigation that night. I couldn't sleep. The house felt haunted. Every shadow whispering Daniel's name. I searched through his old desk, his papers, his insurance forms. That's when I saw it. A new policy. Dated 6 months earlier. $50,000. Another one, 2 months later, for accidental death on the job. Both at Adam S. Handwriting in the witness line. The next morning, another text came. Check the bank account. See who's been moving money. At the bank, Mrs. Thompson, who'd known us for decades, looked at me with pity. Daniel withdrew several thousand in the past few months, she said. He mentioned repairs. At the shop? Repairs. There were no repairs. I checked the signatures, Daniel's handwriting, but unsteady, too shaky. Did he come alone? I asked. Once or twice, he came with your son, Adam. I think my blood ran cold. That evening, another message arrived. The insurance was their idea. They convinced him it was for your safety. It was a trap. I found a note in Daniel's handwriting, dated 3 days before his death. Adam insists I need more insurance. Says it's for Evelyn. But something feels wrong. I don't trust his intentions. And another. Ryan brought papers for the shop. He says it's just business updates. I don't understand what I'm signing. Beneath those notes was a sealed envelope. My name on the front. Inside, a letter. My dearest Evelyn, if you're reading this, it means something's happened to me. I've noticed strange changes in Adam and Ryan. They talk too much about money, too little about life. Claire pressures them constantly. Yesterday, Adam said I should be more careful, that at my age, accidents can be fatal. It didn't sound like advice. It sounded like a warning. Don't trust anyone blindly. Not even them. I love you. Always. Daniel, the room spun around me. They had killed him. My sons. The boys I had raised, fed, loved. Chapter 7. The truth. Next day, Adam came by. He poured himself wine, smiling. Mom, the insurance payout will be about $15,000 after processing. he said casually. You should think about moving. Maybe a retirement community. How do you know the exact amount? I asked softly. He froze, just for a second. Then, smiled. Dad told me everything. Ah? Lee. I saw it in his eyes, the same cold calculation I'd ignored for too long. That night, my phone buzzed again. Go to the police station. Ask for the accident report. There are contradictions. So I went. Sergeant O'Connell, who'd known Daniel for years, looked puzzled when I asked. Accident report? Repiate, Mrs. Carter. There's no record of an explosion at Daniel's shop. I stared at him. What do you mean? That's what the hospital said. He frowned, flipping through his files. Your husband was admitted for poisoning. High levels of methanol in his system. That's what caused the coma. My legs gave out. Poisoning. But my sons told me. He cut me off gently. The immediate family signed a request for confidentiality. They said you were too fragile to handle the details. Immediate family. Adam and Ryan. They hadn't just lied. They had murdered their father. The room blurred around me. I could hear my pulse pounding in my ears. Everything, the insurance, the fake accident, the rushed funeral. All of it had been their doing. The last words of Daniel's letter echoed in my head like a ghostly whisper. Don't trust anyone, not even Tim. And as I walked out of the station into the dying light of Willow Bend, my phone buzzed one last time. The message read, You know the truth now. Be careful. They know you do. The wind howled through the empty streets, and for the first time since Daniel's death, he felt true fear not of being alone, but of the monsters I had brought into this world. The morning after I learned the truth, I didn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen with Daniel's letter clutched in my hands, the words blurring from tears I no longer felt. The clock ticked too loud. Every creak of the floorboards made me flinch. Outside, the wind pushed against the windows. It sounded almost like breathing. I hadn't told anyone what I knew. Not yet, but someone knew that final text still glowed on my phone. Be careful. They know you do. By sunrise, I had made my decision. If my sons had taken their father's life for money, then I would take away the one thing they loved most, control. But revenge wasn't my nature. Daniel used to say, Eve, you don't fight fire with fire. You fight it with truth. So I'd use the truth carefully, quietly. Chapter 2, Old Friends. New secrets. I drove into town that morning. The same drive Daniel had taken every day for 30 years. The shop looked abandoned now. Boarded up, the Carter repair sign tilting sadly to one side. Inside, the air smelled of oil and dust. His tools still lay on the counter, frozen mid-use. I ran my hand across the bench and whispered, I'll find out what they did to you. Mrs. Carter. I turned. It was Ben Morris, Daniel's old apprentice. He'd been like a son to us once, before the boys sent him away to modernize the business. Ben, I breathed, my chest tightening. You're the last person I expected to see. He frowned. I heard what happened, but I don't think it was an accident. My blood turned to ice. Why do you say that? He looked around, lowering his voice. 2 days before Mr. Carter's death, Adam came here with a bottle of whiskey, told me to take a few days off. Said the shop was closed for maintenance. Did Danya know? Ben shook his head. He was confused when I told him. Said he never asked for time off. The next morning, he didn't show up. Then I heard he was in the hospital. That's sealed. Italiano. Every piece fit together, too perfectly. Ben, I whispered, if I asked you to testify, would you? He hesitated, fear flickering in his eyes. Against Adam and Ryan, they're powerful now, Mrs. Carter. They have friends, money. Then we'll do it quietly, I said. Just help me gather proof. And nodded, once, for Mr. Carter. Yes. Chapter 3. The shadow on the porch that night. The house felt different, heavier. I was pouring tea when headlights swept across the front window. A car stopped outside. Then the engine died. My heart pounded as I peered through the curtain. Ryan, he stepped out, his face hidden by the shadow of the porch light. Mom, he called softly. You up? I didn't answer. He knocked once, twice. Then his voice turned colder. I know you've been asking questions about Dad, about the insurance. The teacup slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, forcing my voice steady. He leaned against the doorframe. You've always been a terrible liar. Tinnis smiled, the same boyish smile he used when he was 12 and wanted something. You shouldn't dig into things you don't understand. It'll only make things worse. For who? I asked quietly. He didn't answer. Just turned, walked to the car, and drove off into the dark. My phone buzzed seconds later. He's testing you. Don't be alone tonight. Die Frau sah. Daniel's a niche. But it couldn't be him, could it? Chapter 4. The man in the shadows the next morning. I met Ben at the town library. He'd brought a small box. Inside, photocopies of Danya's ledgers, a few business receipts, and a USB drive. I found these in the shop safe, he said. Your sons must have missed it. One file shows the new insurance policy signed digitally from Adam's email. Perfect, I said, gripping the table. This could prove forgery. But Ben didn't look relieved. His eyes darted toward the window. Datable. Quotes, Mrs. Carter. Someone's been following me. Black SUV. Same one that used to drop Adam off. Fear crept up my spine. Then we move fast. I'll take this to Sergeant O'Connell today. He nodded, then hesitated. There's one more thing. He handed me a folded envelope, my name written on the front. I found this taped under Mr. Carter's workbench. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside a short note, Daniel's handwriting. Evelyn, if you find this, I was right. The shop isn't safe anymore. Someone tampered with the whiskey bottle in my office. I think it was Adam. Don't drink anything they give you. My stomach turned. I remembered the dinner 2 nights before his accident, the one where Adam had poured Daniel a drink, insisting on a toast to the future. The future, indeed. Chapter 5. The visit that evening, Adam showed up, unannounced, smiling, to come. "Mom," he said, stepping into the house without waiting to be invited. "We need to talk." His cologne filled the room. Sharp, expensive, wrong. "About what?" "I heard you went to the police." "I did," I said evenly. "They told me Dad wasn't in an explosion. He was poisoned." He froze, but only for a second. Then that charming smile returned. "Mom," he said, chuckling lightly, "you've been through a lot. You're grieving. You're confused." "Confused?" I whispered. "Daniel was poisoned, and you signed his insurance policy." He stepped closer. "You don't want to start something you can't finish." I took a step back. "You killed your father." His expression darkened. For the first time, I saw the truth in his eyes, cold, hollow, and utterly unrepentant. "I did what had to be done," he said quietly. "He was in the way. He never knew how to think big. You should thank me. You'll live comfortably now." I slapped him. The sound cracked through the room. He didn't flinch, just smiled. "You shouldn't have done that," he said. "Ryan won't take it." As calmly. He turned and left. The door closed softly behind him, leaving me shaking. Chapter 6. The breaking point at night. I packed a small bag and drove to the motel on the edge of town. The clerk looked at me strangely, a widow in black, trembling, checking into a place for drifters. I spent the night reading Daniel's letters, replaying every moment of our life, the good, the bad, the small moments that now felt like miracles. I couldn't let his death be for nothing. At dawn, I drove to the police station. Sergeant O'Connell met me in his office, coffee in hand. "I have proof," I told him, "forgery, motive, and witnesses." He studied the files, his brow furrowing deeper with each page. "Evelyn, this is enough to open an investigation." "Do it," I whispered, "before they hurt anyone else." He nodded slowly. "But you need protection. These aren't just greedy kids. They're desperate." As I left his office, I noticed a man standing by the station steps, tall, in a grey jacket, face obscured by the morning sun, when a tourne. My breath caught Dr. Daniel. At least it looked like him Desame wore, the same shoulders. He paused, looking right at me, and then he was gone. I ran outside, heart pounding. But the street was empty. Only the faint scent of his cologne lingered in the air. Chapter 7. The reckoning that evening. Police cars surrounded Adam's house. He was arrested quietly. Ryan soon after. Forgery, fraud. Suspicion of homicide. The investigation confirmed everything. The poisoned whiskey, the falsified signatures, the insurance kickbacks. They'd planted together. Claire too. But when the trials began, both sons denied everything, claimed I'd lost my mind, that I'd forged the letters myself. In the courtroom, Their eyes met mine, not with shame, but with hatred. When the verdict was read, guilty of manslaughter, I didn't feel joy, just a hollow ache. They were my sons, my blood, and I'd lost them long before that poison ever touched Daniel's lips. Epilogue. The message months later. The shop reopened under Ben's name. I visit sometimes. Daniel's old bench is still there, his tools lined up perfectly. I sit by the window, drink my tea, and watch the sunset the way he used to. One evening, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. You did it. Proud of you. Dee smiled through tears. Maybe it was Ben. Maybe a prank. Or maybe, just maybe, Daniel really was still watching. The wind whispered through the open door, soft and familiar dot. And for the first time since his death, I felt peace. The rain began that night, a relentless, cold drizzle that blurred the world outside Devlin's window. She sat alone in her kitchen, the dim light from the table lamp casting long shadows across the walls. On the table lay her husband's letter, the police report, and her phone. The words still echoed in her mind. He arrived unconscious with symptoms of poisoning. Not an explosion, not an accident. Poison. Her sons had lied. Her own flesh and blood had orchestrated her husband's murder. Then came the vibration of her phone. Another message from the unknown number. They think I'm dead. Don't tell anyone. Meet me where we first met. Evelyn's heart nearly stopped. Her breath caught in her throat. No, it couldn't be. Her fingers trembled as she typed. Daniel? No answer came, just the echo of rain against the glass. The old road by. The time she reached Old Creek Road. The sky was ink. Her car headlights carved tunnels through the mist. The road hadn't changed, still lined with the skeletal remains of oak trees and the ghosts of their youth. It was here, 45 years ago, that Daniel had first smiled at her through the dust and sunlight. She pulled over where the pavement ended. The air smelled of wet earth and rust. A figure emerged from the shadows. He was thinner, his hair grayer, his face marked by something deeper than age, pain, betrayal, survival. But those eyes, those warm, steady eyes. Evelyn, he said softly. The world tilted. She stumbled forward, tears burning her eyes. It got air. The same hands that had built her home, that had fixed 1,000 things. She clutched his coat, her body trembling. Danya, how? They told me you were gone. I buried you. I know, he whispered. That's what they wanted. The truth. They sat inside her car. The rain, a constant whisper around them. Daniel's voice was low, ragged. They poisoned me. Evelyn, Charles, and Henry. Jasmine, too. They used methanol. Said it was for cleaning parts at the shop. I didn't know. God. Daisy. My vision went dark. When you woke up, I was in a facility. Not a hospital. Some private clinic outside of town. Charles said it was for my safety. They wanted control of the insurance, the house, everything. Evelyn stared at him, her pulse thundering. Why didn't you come to me? Trith. But Primera was weak, blind for weeks. They told the doctors not to contact you, said you were ill, unstable. When I started remembering, panique. They planned to finish it. Make sure I never spoke again. His hand trembled as he reached into his coat. He pulled out a folded sheet of paper. A nurse helped me escape. She risked everything. I've been hiding since, watching them, gathering proof. He unfolded the paper, a list of transactions, signatures, forged insurance updates, and audio transcripts from hospital calls. Evelyn saw her sons' names, clear as daylight. Henry Hayes, Charles Hayes. Her sons, murderers. The plan, they don't just want money. Daniel continued. They want control. They've moved everything to shell accounts. Used my name, your name, but I have evidence. Enough to bury them. Evelyn's tears had dried. What replaced them with something colder, sharper? What do we do? She asked. Daniel looked at her, his eyes glinting through the rain-specked glass. First, we make them believe the ghost of Daniel Hayes is still dead. Then, we destroy them from the inside. The confrontation too. Days later, Evelyn invited her sons to dinner. She cooked Daniel as a favorite meal: meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and green beans. She hadn't cooked that dish since the day he died. When Charles and Henry arrived, she greeted them with a tired smile. Jasmine followed, in her perfect red heels, her perfume too sweet, her expression too smug. "You look better, ma'am," Charles said, his eyes scanning the room. Evelyn's tone was soft, careful. "I've been thinking about your suggestion, about the retirement community." Henry smiled, relieved. "That's good, Mum. We'll take care of everything." She poured wine into their glasses, the same bottle Daniel had brought the night before his death. "You boys always know what's best," she said, her voice trembling just enough to sound genuine. From the kitchen doorway, Daniel watched, silent, unseen. Charles lifted his glass. "To family," he said. "To family, Evelyn et Ed." Her hands didn't shake this time. When they drank, her eyes stayed fixed on the window, the reflection of Daniel's silhouette visible just beyond the glass. The unraveling within hours. The calls began. From Charles's office, from Henry's lawyer. Something was wrong with the accounts. The insurance company had flagged multiple fraudulent claims. The police were involved. By the next morning, Evelyn received a message from Daniel. "It's begun." The forged signatures. The bank withdrawals. The hospital bribes. Everything Daniel had collected had been delivered anonymously to the authorities. Empire, the one built on their father's death, began to crumble. The final move, but Evelyn wasn't finished. 1 week later, she asked them to meet her at the shop, the place where everything had begun. When they arrived, the air inside was thick with silence. The machine stood still, untouched. That Evelyn turned to them. "You killed him?" she said. Charles froze. "Mom, don't lie to me." Her voice cracked like thunder. "You poisoned your own father For money. Henry stepped forward, his face pale. You don't understand? I understand perfectly, came a voice from the shadows. Daniel stepped out into the light. Charles's face drained of color. Jasmine screamed. Henry stumbled backward. You wanted me dead, Daniel said calmly. You buried me alive in your lies. Now you get to live with the truth. The silence that followed was unbearable. Charles's lips trembled. You're supposed to be dead. Daniel's eyes were cold steel. You made that mistake once. Epilogue 2 months later. The trial made national headlines. Sons charged in attempted murder and insurance fraud case. Evelyn sat in the courtroom, her hands folded around Daniel's. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts, she felt no triumph, no joy, only peace. Outside, cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions. But Evelyn and Daniel just walked and in and down the courthouse steps into the afternoon light. I'm sorry, Daniel whispered. For what? She asked. For letting them turn into what they became. Evelyn looked up at him, her eyes steady. They made their choices. We made ours. They didn't look back. The town would talk for years about the quiet couple from Spring Creek, about the tragedy, the betrayal, the resurrection. But for Evelyn Hayes, one truth would always remain. The dead don't rest until the living face their sins.